Good evening. Thank you for joining us today on Yom HaShoah. This is the first time in 2 years that we are all gathered here in person for Yom HaShoah since the pandemic began. Thank you for coming so that we are able to come together as a community to remember the 6 million Jews murdered in the Holocaust so that their names and lives are not forgotten or lost to us or the world. Today we mourn the loss of 6 million mothers, fathers, and children. We mourn the loss of artists, educators, doctors, lawyers, merchants, thinkers and dreamers, and the manifold manifestations of humanity expressed in the Jewish people. We desperately try to comprehend the sheer scale of this collective loss, and we are confronted with the families whose lives are forever imprinted with this loss, including in our own small community. As we contemplate the profound losses, the reality of ongoing anti-Semitic hatred, and indeed an uptick in this hatred, has again yesterday made headline news. It is this news and the violence unfolding in Ukraine that causes the grief to multiply. Survivors of the Shoah put forth a call of action that today is not just a day of remembrance, but one of action. It is a reminder that we should not stand by, that we can stand up in our own way, and we can choose not to let our collective history repeat itself. Today, we see Russian attacks on a sovereign nation, Ukraine. We are physically revulsed by the pictures of mass graves and other atrocities, including war crimes, so painful to us. We also hear similar rhetoric being employed, albeit at times inverted, and it is a visceral reminder of our own history. So today, as we are gathered here as a community to remember and reflect on the murder of 6 million Jews and the immeasurable loss to humanity, we must also reflect on the question, have we learned from history? This year, as the war in Ukraine gives Yom HaShoah a particularly contemporary significance, it brings to mind the murder of a survivor in her 90s, Vanda Semyonova-Obirkova. Her life was ended by the very worst of humanity, beginning with the Shoah and dying in a basement bombarded by Russian artillery and bombs. As Elie Wiesel so poignantly stated in response to a question, "What have you learned from the Holocaust?" he responded that it's possible to get away with anything. As we stand here today and pause for a moment to contemplate, it is up to us as individuals and as a community not only to remember, but to change Elie Wiesel's answer, and that we will act so it is no longer possible to get away with anything. Thank you.
I would sing into the microphone, but I need the words. El Male Rachamim, Shochein V'Maromim, Hamitzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei HaShekhinah, B'ma'alot Kedoshim U'Torim, Kezohar Harakim HaSihirim, Et Kol HaNeshamot Shel Sheshet Milyonei HaYehudim, Anashim, Nashim V'Taf, Shenehergu V'Shenishchatu V'Shenisrefu, V'Shenitferu Chayim Al Kiddush Hashem, B'dei HaMeratzchim HaGermanim, V'Yozreihem Shemar HaAvim, Ba'al HaRachamim, Yasti Rein V'Sevte Knafav Le'olamim, V'Yitzror HaChayim Et Nishmoteham, Began Eden Tehei Menuchatam, V'Yakumu L'Keitz HaYamim L'Chayotam, V'Nomar Amen.
to the list of the concentration camps: Helmo, Belzec, Sobibor, Treblinka, Majdanek, Auschwitz-Birkenau, Mauthausen, Nachtwasser, Zuchhof, Ravensbrück, Bergen-Belsen, Buchenwald, Dachau, Flossenburg, Gross-Rosen, Mittelbau-Dora, Sachsenhausen, Stutthof, Warsaw, Theresienstadt.
Before we turn to the Mourner's Kaddish as an introduction to it, this is from the Megillat HaShoah, the Shoah Scroll. It's by Professor Avigdor Shinan, put out by the Schechter Institute and the Rabbinical Assembly. Just a quotation from it. "Do not mourn too much, but do not sink into the forgetfulness of apathy. Do not allow days of darkness to return. Weep, but wipe the tears away. Do not absolve and do not exonerate. Do not attempt to understand. Learn to live without an answer. Through our blood, live." The Mourner's Kaddish, and please join with me. Yitgadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah, b'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Israel, bagala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach li'olamol me'almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekucha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlam maraba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who brings peace to the heavens bring peace here on earth, and let us say amen.
All right, can you hear me? I guess you can. Well, now I know as I'm standing up here what Amir, you were talking about when I walked up and you said everybody's cold, let's get on with it.
That was my one job.
Well done. It's great to see all of you here today. It's been, we've had many events over the last couple of years, of course, that we've had to skip, and I'm so glad we're here, not only because it's been some time, but more particularly because if world events, as was alluded to, make it all the more important. It's always uplifting for me for lots of reasons to be here. One of them is very personal, as Cindy knows. Was today's April 28th. On April 29th, Dachau was liberated, and the commemoration coincides with the liberation of Dachau by a number of American Army units, including the 20th Armored Division, in which my grandfather, who was just a kid, just a young artillery officer who grew up in the Mount Pleasant neighborhood, a couple of miles from here, was a part of. And you've heard me talk about this in times past, and I think it's suffice it to say it never left him. And so I'm proud of that. I'm proud to share that with you. I'm proud that Cindy has highlighted that over the years. But it's also, it's a reminder of the fact that, with the fading of time, the fading of direct connections to the Shoah, to World War II, that it becomes all the more important that we have these events. And I know that the city has supported it well. Tony Cabral, Mayor's passed. Mayor Lang's been here at a lot of these events. It's been very important for us to support it. But when the trick is, and and this is no mean feat, it can't be a block checking exercise. And I know that for no one here that's the case, but it can never be allowed to be, while I appeared here, I went to a site in Eastern Europe, I read a book. It can't be like, okay, therefore I remembered, my job is done. There is associated with everything that we do here a moral obligation that endures. And we're reminded of that, obviously, with events taking place now in Eastern Europe. The callousness, the brutishness, the sheer brutality of it all. And so we're reminded yet again of all these things that we should be thinking about all the time. It's unfortunate that we have to have those kinds of reminders. The power of the example that all of us set here by being today, and I hasten to thank you, Cindy, Amir, Rafi, Nate, everyone, Manya, everybody who's spoken. The importance of being here, of setting that example, is what will make enliven that moral obligation that I just referred to. It is, and I would offer one other thought, and that's this. It is what Manya referred to Elie Wiesel's observation about getting away with things, and it's these days it's worth pondering, but maybe in a counterintuitive way. We have maybe I should let this ambulance pass. We'll let our city emergency medical folks do their job. And it's something we should ponder in a way that's not necessarily straightforward, and by that I mean this. So we've watched things play out in the Ukraine on TV, and the American journalists have done a wonderful job in covering all of it, really. And I think the American government has done a really great job bringing it to the fore. But and so we've seen, like almost in real time, the brutality that we so want to do something about and stand up to. So we're seeing it, right? And you can imagine how things would have been in 1945 to see it all play out. But the problem we have now isn't so much the evidence, it's the believability among some folks of that evidence. And what I'm getting at now is what we deal with all the time at the municipal level, at the national level, at the global level, and that is just sort of the way that people perceive facts, the way that people discuss civic events, and the disconnect between what's real and what's perceived, and what's tribal and what's actual, and so therein lies, I think, I would suggest the work for all of us to do, which is to call out fact. When you see dead bodies align the street in Bucha, Ukraine, that's a fact. People lie down, all executed. That is a fact, and we have to call it such. So when you even hear in the United States apologists for the Russian army and the Russian government, you have to point it out. There's no ambiguity there. It's an objective fact that people were murdered, and that's really, to my mind, the work for all of us to do, which is to maintain some level of rational perception and commitment to just telling the world the way it is, that commitment to the truth. And if there's anything that I wish upon all of us today, it's that therein lies the work that all of us have to do. I thank you guys again for this occasion. It's great to see such a great turnout tonight, and I'll wear my coat next time, Amir.
I want to thank the mayor. I want to thank all of you. As Manya said when she started, this year was super important because of the events in Eastern Europe, but also because of the global pandemic that made us not do this in the right way. I want to add two other things. One, about the cold. I think that my first stories and memories of stories of the Holocaust were always how cold it was. Whenever you heard any testimony, there were the atrocity, but always is a cold. And I feel that even though I probably dislike the cold more than anybody here, I think it's okay that for a little bit here we stand and we feel it. The other thing that I want to mention is, and it's the two words that we didn't say today, and my social media feed for the last 24 hours was not Elon Musk and fake news, but it was never again. And I think that as long as every year for 24 hours at least, those two words, never again, are featured, and maybe it's just my feed, but I'm sure in many of yours as well, then we're doing our job. Thank you again for being here, and I'm sure we'll see you here again next year.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.